you are the hero and you are the villain. You are the witch that was burned, but you were the hunter that burned her. You are made up of all of these different cells that have existed both epigenetically but as an environmental program, and it is all contained within you.
The Becoming Flame podcast broadcasts pure, unfiltered power exchange that stokes the flame of your being. Because it's time to remember. It's time to return. It's time to become flame.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Becoming Flame podcast. I am your host today, and it is a solo episode today. So I'm Kait and you are with me today. I want to talk today about some unfoldings that have occurred that I've already recorded a previous episode about, which was discovering the likely assault or unfortunate circumstances that my great-grandmother found herself in order to give birth to my grandfather, my paternal grandfather. If you haven't listened to that episode, the crux of it is my grandfather came to me and asked me really to know him. And upon discovery of, the actual ancestry and the actual birth records and things like this, I found out that my great-grandmother was 11 or 12 years old at the time that she gave birth to my grandfather, and he was taken straight into state custodial care. And there was a series of things that I did to alchemize that aspect of my DNA, of my epigenetics, which was in my very, very recent family history. But upon doing that and going through those deeper processes, I also had to realize that I am also the epigenetic recipient and the DNA progeny of the violator. So my family tree and my very recent family history was made of both the violator and the victim. And as I felt into that, it took me a number of weeks to metabolize the concept of being not like the villain in terms of like you said a bitchy comment, like really knowing that you are the villain in the story by all parameters, by all stakes, by all standards. You take some child's innocence, you violate someone in some way, you hurt someone irrevocably, you cannot restore that. You take away something that you can never give back again. You are the villain, right? The end. You are the villain. And so really sitting with that and knowing that and opening up that capacity to be the bad guy, to be the villain, to experience what it is like to be reprehensible, to be so bad, so villainous, so heinous. And I wasn't a novice at this. Many years ago when I first, probably honestly, it was around 2016, 2017, so 10 years ago, when I really started doing deep work in my own personal lineage, i.e. all of the different aspects of my consciousness and what it had experienced. And I had been initiated into reading the Akashic Records, and I mostly did it for myself. And I mostly looked at all of the different lives and different unfinished endings and different scars and battle wounds and all of these other things that I had gone through as a soul. And I became, I don't want to say addicted to it because it's not fun and it's something I always had to like push myself into doing. So it definitely wasn't like, I want this greedy, like, let's go. It was, I know that this is the absolute requirement for me at this point in time. And I did hundreds and it wasn't fun and it didn't get easier. Each life can be full of so much terrible, terrible, terrible sorrow. But I found this series of lives where I was truly the bad guy, where I was truly the one who had been playing out a lot of karma that in the first series of discoveries, like lifetime discoveries, where I was the victim and these things were being done to me. I then discovered I went off into a series of investigations where I had committed those same kinds of acts against other people. And you start to really understand the laws of karma, and you understand that it's actually not that some people are good and some people are bad. You actually start to discover some souls are here to discover what it's like on the other side of that. How someone could have a series of decisions or a series of choices, or what would need to happen in their life in order for them to undertake these choices, to do these things. How does a war criminal become? How does a military leader exist? How does someone who thinks that violence is the answer form? And I discovered that my soul has a deep interest in humanity and in forming a deeper understanding of why humanity has made the kinds of decisions that it's made, in order to know the opposite, in order to know how to talk and to connect with what if we did the opposite? What if we shifted consciousness into a higher octave, into a different vibration? And so I am not a soul that has recently come here. I am a soul that's been here for way too many times and is almost like too deeply interested in the dysfunction of humanity. And I remain so. I remain still as fascinated with this as I ever have. But I need to catch myself of going off into these tangents of like, why do people do these things that they do when we know it results in X outcome? Why don't they choose differently that results in a much higher, much more valuable outcome? And I have to stop myself from going and discovering that and reminding myself, you know why. You know why. You know how these things are created. You've gone and discovered them. And I did that for close to 2.5, almost 3 years, was discovering all these different types of lives and remembering the lessons and remembering that work so that I didn't have to spend lifetime and lifetime and lifetime doing it anymore. So it was almost like, because of the opportunity of the frequency of the earth at this time and the shift and the shift and the gateway change that we're in at this moment, I could upload and restore all of this data and understand it. And yet I had never done it for my personal family of current biological lineage. And so finding out that my grandmother needed me to know this and restore her and release her soul and to help her soul to move on, after that occurred, my biological great-grandfather also came to me and could already experience that sense of regret and understanding of the wrongness of his actions. And I think the reason that I say this is that sometimes we need to understand that humans are here to make experimentations. Humans are here to experiment the depth and breadth and vast array of experiences that we can have here on Earth. The difference between a human and a non-human entity that commits bad, atrocious acts, heinous acts, is the lessons and the remorse. A non-humanoid, i.e., a force that is not here for our ultimate good and is not here to help us shift a timeline back to where it needs to go and restore the earth into its fullness, has no remorse. That is their agenda. And why would they be remorseful about being successful in what they're here to do? There's not going to be remorse in that regard. And so I could really feel, when I sat with my great-grandfather, his deep sadness about not really understanding how this occurred, this perverted sickness that sort of overtook him. And he sort of explained that there were a number of different forces that clouded his thinking and his judgment. I interpreted that to be a concoction of drugs, alcohol, poor lineage, bad parenting, dire conditions, and a number of other external factors that really influenced people. And I have a lot of compassion for that, because there is a very strong agenda of fear propaganda that is put into this planet. And if you are not aware of how that affects your biology, you fall really, really victim to it really quickly. So we were able to sit, and I asked him questions, and I'm just trying to go back and remember. So I said, what do you know now that you wish you knew before that you could change? What do you wish you could have changed? Because what have you learned from this? And he sort of expressed that nobody's innocence is available for the taking without consequence to the soul who takes it. And him living those consequences of the theft of innocence of another person opened his soul up to a number of very unenjoyable experiences in this lifetime. And he seems to think that those experiences were part of the earth realm construction, that innocence is part of, or the core of purity, the core of creation, the core of what we are all here to experience, is that we call it innocence and we think of it as a childlike naivety. But what he explained to me was actually the innocence is the part of us that believes and knows and operates from the freedom of who we are, without the jaded parts, without the shell, without all of these guardings and boundaries and protections. And that's why it's often confused with naivety, because an innocent soul is actually very attached to and connected into and has a strong resonance with unity consciousness, with an I am presence, with a consciousness of oneness. And he said, when you steal that innocence away through violating it, because any kind of violation is against the laws of unity, is against the laws of oneness, because in oneness you don't commit acts that hurt one, because it hurts us all. And he was explaining to me that in the violation of another, you violate yourself, and you expel yourself out of oneness, out of unity, into a dissociated, disconnected state. And he said that is what hell, of what we've come to name as hell, actually is. It's that expulsion from the oneness, from the connection, from the unity. Whether you're alive, dead, or whatever, it doesn't matter what dimensional landscape you live in, doesn't matter what, spirit form or physical form you have, that expulsion from oneness is the experience of hell, as we kind of try to call it. And so when he said he already lived in hell, which is why he was able to commit the crime itself in the first place. But the levels of hell and the levels of trauma and despair and chaos and demonic kind of connections that he then went into is something that you would think about in Dante's Inferno. Like, the kinds of images that he was painting for me was very much like reading the Inferno. You start to think of all these levels of hell. And in his experience and what he was telling me was, you think that you're in the worst place in the world, and you can find worse, and you can find worse. And then, because your consciousness is in a vibration that matches that, all of the decisions that you make thereafter start to spiral you deeper and deeper and deeper into that place. And so to actually get yourself out of it becomes extremely challenging, because the denseness of that energy makes it harder and harder and harder to make good decisions for yourself. And he sort of explained, you can see this in your physical world wherever you go, that some people seem to just jump from cloud to cloud and their life looks lucky and looks like it just unfolds naturally in front of them. Well, he says the same thing happens, but in the denser energies, it looks like all you do is make one bad decision after another. And that means, you continue to pick up a bottle, you continue to pick up a syringe, you continue to do crime, you continue to do things that disconnect you from a purity of love and openness, because you are becoming extremely coherent with the vibration that you live in. And that made a lot of sense to me about why we can talk about choices, as your life is made from the choices that you make, but how difficult it is to change your choices. That is why I think it's really, really fascinating, because your choices are affected by the vibration that you live in, and the vibration that you live in affects the choices that you make. And it becomes the cyclical spiral of, this is how I create my reality. And so, continuing back with the conversation, I said, so where are you now? What is your current position? And he has indicated that he remains in a cycle of hell, albeit slightly less bad than it was, but that he struggles to move out of that. And I do have to say that this conversation took place in a very short period of time, because it was very sickening for me to be in contact with him. Equally, my great-grandmother had a challenge to maintain connection with me, because she's in some version of this kind of cycling victim hell as well. So there's a very specific vibration of, I don't know what else to call it, like victim hell is just like, you can get that image, like it's not a good place. You just spiral yourself in your victim. And this conversation was spiraling in the, I'm such a bad, like I do terrible, I'm a bad person. And it was this spiral. And so I came out of these conversations and I said, okay, now connect me to not their human forms, not their biological forms, not this trapped karmic cycle that these are both in. How do we elevate? Like, because I need to, even if it's selfishly, just for me, get out of that. But what is available here? And so I wanted to share this with you, because I think there's a lot of people that can find family members, ancestral work that they can do, and they find, wow, my ancestors are really in a bad place, or they committed really bad things and there's been no retribution, there's been no recompense, made by me, my family lineage, or by anyone associated with this. If you happen to have, particular ancestry where they were imperialists or colonizers, or committed genocide, or were gangsters, or any of these kinds of things that took place not only in one generation but over several generations, and more importantly, where the culture itself accepted or normalized this kind of behavior, so that it just continued to happen and continued to happen. And we see that throughout history. It's not even something that, has to be recent. And so in many ways, because we are the descendants of ancestors that raped and pillaged and colonized and committed genocide in every continent of the world, no matter what your family history is, there has been even tribal wars. There have been, human history exists in a very violent way. And so this is a conversation that I think is relevant really for anyone who discovers, whether it's a recent or a very past ancestor that has committed some stuff that they're not super proud of and are caught in that. And you, as a result, are caught in these things. So why is this important? Because, for example, you might go off to try to do any specific thing that your soul is really trying to do in this world. And you keep hitting blocks. You keep hitting this invisible ceiling, this glass ceiling, this like wall that you cannot break through. And you think, I've cleared all my blocks. Like I really don't feel that way anymore. Like I want to go out and do the thing. I don't have the fears that I used to have. I'm wanting to run, free and bold and explore. And this is what actually was the preamble to my great-grandmother even coming to see me, or my grandfather to introduce me to my great-grandmother to come and see me. And I was really in this place of understanding the complexity of being the hero in one version of the story and the villain in another, and being able to hold the complexity and the nuance and the version of reality where both can be true at once. And I started to learn how to metabolize that and learn how to use that and in the extremities of me and the multifaceted version of me of going, I am both and I am all and I am neither. And in this point where we connect into the oneness of all, we are all of it and we are also none of it. And whenever we identify too much with one or the other, or the nuance in between, all the many different definitions that we could have of any particular identity, it collapses us into a smaller version than the all that we are. And so this was the nuance that I was coming into. And then I was introduced to this family story, except that it wasn't a story and it really happened, and it's held in my epigenetics. And so that's what was like, okay, well, this one I have to accept and go into and open it up. And so I now want to go in and share with you what their higher versions or the higher consciousness and the higher intelligence on this has to say. And so that we can come to think, all right, how is it that we are, as stewards of this new world, as custodians of this earth, as the biogenerators of this new era, we are going to be seeding it with our biology. But we need to know that our biotechnology has the capacity to purify and to seed in innocence. And what does innocence mean? A reminder is that connection into oneness, connection to unity, into pure love, knowing that we don't have to bring the violence and the separation and the disconnect and the disharmony and the incoherence with us. We can move out of these realms, because otherwise all we're going to do is replicate a system that we're trying to get out of. And so our body vessels need to be so pure in order, or as pure as we can get them, in order to be able to actually seed and hold this reality. And so I wanted to bring this here. And so really the question is, we have all experienced terrible things occurring to us, but we have all experienced, if we are the souls of this next earth, we have also all experienced what it feels like to enact them. How do we clear our biological vessel and purify through our biotechnology the being of us through intention, but also through the aid of those beings here with us today at this point in history? How do we make that shift? How do we make that purification? It is such a noble pursuit, and it is the responsible way to be enacting your dreams and your goals to shifting us into this next era. It is saying, I am responsible for me and my lineage, for my biology, for my epigenetics, for my DNA, and for the cleansing of the vessel that I be in all that I can do. And as I cleanse myself and my vessel, it has tentacles that go into so many different places, because that's how ancestry works, and that's how these kinds of things work. And even though our true family is not that which we are born into in the blood relation, what's really important is that the vessel that we live in, the vessel that we operate, is the biotechnology, and it can have interference from these epigenetic conditionings, programs, events, traumas, beliefs, all of this kind of stuff. And so if we all chose to purify our vessels, we would come back into coherence with the earth harmonic resonance and away from the fear and the propaganda and the thing. And so actually it is one of the most valuable things that we could do for our time, not just purely to sit in meditation, but to clear the vessel, to do the energetic and spiritual as well as physical parasitic cleanse. And so however you individually choose to do that specific clearing work is fine. There's no one way is better than the other. There's no, this is the only way that there can be. No. If you choose to work with a practitioner, if you choose to do this by yourself, all are completely acceptable as long as the vessel is continuously cleansed and restored day by day back into harmonic frequency with the earth. Holding extremity, holding hate, animosity, rage, anger in an unyielding, pure form because something was done to you, because injustice was committed against you personally or just into the world, where wars are created, maintained, fueled, restored again, and continued into the decades, into the hundreds of years. The wars that we rage outside of us can only continue because the wars that we hold within us continue to burn. We are not masters of holding the complexity, of holding the nuance, of holding the multifaceted capacity to be both the hero and the villain, to be the victim and the violator, to be the winner and the loser. The very sheer notion that these two opposites, these two dualities exist exterior to you is the byproduct of the original separation wound. And anywhere that you see with your physical eyes or senses and even your internal capacity to feel and witness and experience the extremities of an issue or of a scenario or of anything at all and not experience the both and the all in an overlapping, nuanced, complex, multifaceted, multidimensional way is to remind yourself of your own fracturing from the truth of who you are, because you are all of those things and yet you are not. But the experiencing of each aspect of how stories unfold, to know that you can experience each character within the story is the maturing soul and the metabolization of knowing that none of these characters are anything but stories being relayed to you. When you read fables, and sometimes they are quite extreme, scary, horrifying. We read them because we don't necessarily see the characters that portray these morals, lessons, stories, truths at times as one-dimensional, as only one thing. The remakes of old classics have given a different perspective on a character once portrayed in only one-dimensional way. Oftentimes when we see a person in a particular way and we put a particular label on them, it is our sign to ourselves that we have reduced that character to a one-dimensional narrative. And that character no longer has a voice, multidimensionality, multifacetedness, or a truer, more vivid, more truthful experience. And it is a sign to ourselves to say, where have I reduced the characters in my own story to a singular line of narrative, to a singular truth, to a singular descriptor? Because that's not true. The woman at the store that you got in an argument with isn't just a cranky old whatever. She has a backstory and a front story and a side story and an up story and a down story. She's all of the multifaceted, multidimensional aspects of herself that you are of yourself. And our capacity as mature souls, as mature beings of evolutionary consciousness, that we want to hold and unlock and get into the power of. If you want to unlock your consciousness and you want to use your biotechnology for extraordinary things, but you are still in the act of reducing others into one-dimensional or two-dimensional stories, reducing them, then you are in the act of reducing yourself. And part of the reason that we are so good at being able to do that is that we have been trained to do that. The technology that we are exposed to on a daily basis sucks us in and reduces us to a smallness, reduces us to the absolute smallest capacity that we can still operate as humans with. But that's not the biotechnology that opens us up into dreaming new worlds and creating new landscapes. Our native technology systems that are native to humans, that are native to creator beings, is to expand and to explore and to open us up, to imagine different worlds and different ideas, different technologies that expand and elevate, not reduce and contain. And the more that we are trained to reduce and contain, the more that we will enact that out against every other person that we meet. But in doing so, we'll reduce and contain ourselves. To discover that our ancestors have done things that reduce and contain other people, and be fixated on a story of reduction and containment of that, is only to trap ourselves in that same spiral that they themselves have been trapped in. Human ingenuity is vast, and it is incredibly capable of creating a new reality. Technologies exist in the future that open us up, expand our consciousness, raise us to a frequency that is so high that we eliminate so many of the issues that we constantly combat today, that we are circling and spiraling today, because we continue to invest all of our attention into technologies that reduce and contain human consciousness. Think of a crazy idea. Whatever it is possible through the biology of humanness, through the biotechnology system that expands and elevates and creates unlimited opportunity. But when we reduce ourselves into the singular definition of the one thing that our soul did at one time to experience a particular investigation of why would we ever want to destroy or disconnect, and yet we get stuck in that, or we get so bombarded by the fear and the pain and the belief that others have power, and therefore we need to defer it to them. We collectively are accepting to reduce and contain ourselves and our society within that construct. And therefore, we cannot see the solutions and the opportunities that are right in front of us, blaringly obvious in front of us, but that we cannot see them because we have cut ourselves off from it in reducing and containing ourselves in other people's technology that is designed to imprison us. And this is why it's so important to approach ancestral work from a much higher vibrational frequency perspective than that which it is currently held at. Because you do not want to get caught within that spiral of victimhood or villainous karmic ties where you circle that drain for eternity. And so whenever you approach this, no matter what modality you use, no matter what desired outcome you have for yourself personally, the desire that you hold is that we all return to who we are in the truth of us, and that we all remember the connection that we have to an unconditional love source. Whether you call that God or Allah or Yahweh, or universe or magic or plasma or some other god or goddess. The return to the self as the holder of all possibility, the holder of all universal truth, can equally be found by going and working with one single cell in the body. Because that one single cell is the microcosm that reflects and holds the macrocosm. And the one cell within you has the intelligence to replicate and reproduce that truth throughout your body. And so working with that one cell to re-educate it, to reprogram it, to restore it to the truth of who you be is the restoration of truth throughout. But if you do that one time and then you go and feed yourself back into these programs, back into the reduction and the containment and the technology that reduces and reduces and reduces and reduces, and feed that frequency of reduction, of smallness, of containment, of unintelligence, then the work that you have to do to reprogram yourself every day needs to reflect how much unprogramming that you then go and do. So it's not enough to do this a single time and then go and put yourself back into the constructs and the programs and the fear and the bombardment and the containment and the reduction, and then think that that one thing that you did that one time is going to hold off all of the other things that you've done. And so this is really how you start to take radical responsibility for your own biotechnology system and approaching healing work in the correct way of saying, it's not because I am broken, it is because there are a series of programs that have been broadcast for a number of years, decades, centuries, millennia, that have been programming the human race, of which my ancestry is a part, of which my epigenetics have been derived, of which my DNA has been derived, of which I am the physical building blocks made up of. And therefore my biotechnology is tampered with in some way if I haven't done any of this clearing work before. If I have blocks, if I have resistance to particular things that I want to be putting out into the world and that aren't flowing, and yet my belief system is that they should be, my belief system is there, my reality isn't, the chasm between those two things could be the programmation of the greater environment of which both my biology is derived and my thinking and believing is derived at a level. And therefore, show me and help me to understand where and how I could work with that. So it's not about getting rid of boundaries. It's about asking, do I actually have the correct kinds of boundaries in place that allow my full self and my full expression to expand, to elevate, to experience unconditional love in various different domains and realities? Do I have the right kinds of boundaries in place that allow me to experience the fullness of me, the truth of me, who I am, and my inestimable power? And my inestimable power comes from this unity of oneness, of connection to the truth of me in the multifaceted, multidimensional, nuanced, complex, complicated, full definition of me. Not in the reduced and contained and pretty packaged one-dimensional, two-dimensional definition, but in the scope of all that is and the nuance that I get to play in and dance in and flicker through like fire. What is the correct boundary now from that perspective that I need to place? Because having boundaries in place that don't allow you to come into the friction of what is uncomfortable within you, what you don't like as part of what you hold within your biology, what you don't like, where you are the villain in someone's story, where you are the perpetrator, where you are the bad guy. If you have created boundaries that prohibit anyone bringing you this information, you are cutting yourself off from the alchemy work that is available to be done through the understanding that you are the hero and you are the villain. You are the witch that was burned, but you were the hunter that burned her. You are made up of all of these different cells that have existed both epigenetically but as an environmental program, and it is all contained within you. And that seed that you are seeding, this new reality where you want to live in peace and harmony and coexistence with nature, cannot germinate without your full presence. And if you are only coming there with the aspects of you that you like, that you accept, and that you deem worthy, what is happening to the entire aspect of body or part of you that isn't worthy enough for you? That is the hunter, that is the villain, that is the rapist, that is the part of you that you wish not to see. Because whether you like it or not, no matter what your skin color, no matter what your ancestry, there are parts of you that have done bad, whether it's another lifetime, whether it's another reality. The other aspect of this is the quantum, that right now in this reality of this dimension of who you are in this identity, in this lifetime, in this moment, whatever your name is right now, that person with that same name is living a different series of inestimable realities where you have made different choices. So every possible choice that you could have made at every junction, another version of you has branched off. How many there are of you in just this lifetime, irrespective of all the other lifetimes that you may or may not have had at different points in history and different points of time. You are living all the possible realities that you could have ever lived in this one moment. So it is impossible for you to say, I'm like this, full stop. Because you're like this and that and that and that and that and this and that and that. There are not enough letters in all conceivable languages to give the to the versions of you. There are not enough numbers in the universe that we even know to count the number of versions of you that exist in this version of you that you are right now. And so then to reduce yourself and to contain yourself in such a way that would cut you off from the multidimensionality of you, the multidimensional, multifaceted diamond self of you, is your choice. That's a choice that you're making. Because to go and visit and metabolize and alchemize and bring together and meld all your power into one source, into one convicted movement forward, or even to just stay still because the world is moving around you instead, and that you stay in this moment of fullness and completion in all the aspects of you, in all the multiple dimensions and realities where you exist, whether it's just in this lifetime, in all of them. What would that inestimable power actually feel like? To have every single aspect of your consciousness in one split second fully united. You would have no idea what to do. Because right now you are a slither of your energy moving, and that slither of your energy is incredibly powerful. It creates beyond what you can even imagine. Every choice you make, every idea you have expands and elevates you into a higher and higher and higher, more expanded, more contained version of yourself. And contained in that way, it means all aspects of you coming into this unification. But if you start to deny aspects of you, if you really start to say, no, I'm not like that, and I'm not like this, and I refuse that, and I refuse that definition, then you could never bring that part of you because you've made that denial. Everywhere that you have shame, that you have pushed an aspect of your way, it can never come back. It can never be used. It can never be alchemized because you've ostracized it and you've made it a distant and disconnected part of you. And then you say, we need to stop the wars because it's part of people being disconnected, and it's part of people, seeing difference and pushing things away that are different and they don't like. But where are you actually bringing all of the parts of you that you do not like into your being, into your reality, into yourself to say, yes, I am all of these heinous, horrible, difficult, terrible things that I condemn and that I do not accept. And I must metabolize it as part of the reality that I exist in. Because if I exist in that reality exteriorly, I exist with it interiorly. And the peace and the calm and the happiness and the joy that I experience is only to the extent that I'm integrated. And if I want to experience the full erotic creative power of this biotechnology unit, I need to go to the underworld and I need to understand who am I in the worst and darkest and most corrupt aspects of me? And can I be brave enough to know that the power that I have to alchemize, the power that I have to love every single aspect of me is all I need. And that's all that it takes. And sometimes we start with an ancestor that comes to us and shares us this story. And it is so easy to judge and condemn and label. That is this kind of person. That is this kind of person. But it's too simple. That's why we're still caught up in these karmic loops of simplicity and singularity. There's this whole entire manosphere that is obsessed with the singularity, but we're not singularity. And even oneness has never said that it's singular. It is all. It is every single aspect of all of us in one. And yet, in that place, it all converges and harmonizes into a frequency of fullness that we cannot even imagine what it feels like in our bodies yet, because we haven't done it as a unified world. So even all of the monks and all of the swamis and all of the gurus and all of these people, these descended masters, all of these people that have channeled, they can only estimate the feeling. They can only estimate the proximity to what that would be, because we have been so disconnected from every aspect of ourselves for as long as we can remember. Which means we don't really know how the world will shift when we all accept every aspect of ourselves. We have an idea. We have an approximation. We have a similarity to something that we've seen or felt or heard or had a dream of, or that we hold a vision of, or that we have a remembering for. But our biological systems don't know what the technology of pure embodied love actually is yet. And we keep thinking of it as romantic love in this reductionist and contained way, because everything in our lives right now has been reduced and contained. And our definitions and our images of what life could be are all reduced and contained. And this is so exciting, because if all we can do is say, well, what if I got off any kind of technology or external device or hobby or interaction that reduced and contained me? What if the friends or the family or the workplaces or the this or the that reduced and contained me, that gave me a singular definition? So many of us who have become online entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in general, creators, anyone who's making a living from being their self. Can you be everything about yourself? Can you be not necessarily film it and put all aspects of you online, but can you show up in the presence of all that you are today? And can tomorrow be a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more? And can that unfolding start to be a elevation and an expansion, as opposed to, I've got to do this healing to fix my life, to move my blocks so that I can make more money? Because the way that I see the abundance that exists in nature, it is elevation and expansion. You have one apple tree that produces hundreds of apples per season. And each one of those apples contains, I don't know, let's call it 20 seeds. So hundreds of apples, each of 20 seeds. That's one season. And then the next year, and the next year, and the next year. And if you planted every single one of those 20 seeds from just one apple, you'd have 20 more trees producing hundreds of more apples without ever needing to do anything other than plant one apple's seeds per year. You would have infinite apples at the end of that lifetime just by taking one apple's seeds and planting them. The amount of abundance that is freely offered and freely given and freely provided on this planet has never been in question until we started containing and reducing ourselves. There is no way that I am not an abundant creator, but I am also the opposite. And I am also this, and I am also this, and I am every single definition of relationship with money, with prosperity, with providership, with all of it. And the only thing that I need to do is choose to accept, to metabolize, to alchemize, to love all of them and accept all of them within my reality, and allow the allowance of who I be and the nuance and the complexity and the multifaceted, multidimensional aspects of me to be harmonized within my being and recalibrate to that which is true. And if I allow the calibration to truth, the coherence to truth, to trump the operation of my being, I will naturally calibrate to that of the most abundant, most prosperous, most creative, most erotic, most alive version of myself, because that is the truth. And instead of me going out and trying to get myself in a tears about what are my blocks and what I need to heal and why isn't it working for me and I haven't worked out my niche or my competition, and I need to contort and conform and reduce and contain and limit and niche, I simply need to hold all that I am without judgment, without force, without saying that one is better than the other, that this is that, whatever it may be, and hold the opportunity for my biotechnology to do what it naturally does, which is to come into coherence with truth. Why don't we come into coherence with truth? Because we block ourselves with all of the external noise. Not only the television and the social media devices, but the beauty industry and what we're putting on our skin, and the food industry of what we're putting in our body, and the water industry of what we're putting in our mouth. And all of that programs that one singular cell into incoherence. Coherence to that which is not truth. And we all collectively do it. And so we look exterior to ourselves and we say, well, I'm doing what she's doing or what he's doing or what they're doing, so it must be right. And so we get our coherence signals from our exterior reality, which is all part of a very powerful program to distort. And so our signals for cohesion and coherence are distorted because we're all looking outside and we're being fed incoherence from every single aspect. All the digestion that we're taking into everything that we're taking into our body is designed to keep us out of that truth so that we can be reduced and contained. And so the answer is so simple. Become someone who is so curious about who you are, about all the aspects of you, about the parts of you that aren't linear, that hold diametrically opposite stories simultaneously, and just do nothing about it. Just hold them and trust in yourself and your biotechnology and the systems that are wired to remember your truth. And by bringing it all in and just holding it and expanding your self-definition in to include those things, irrespective of how uncomfortable that is, irrespective of how much you disagree with that reality and how much you don't want to be like that, quiet all that judgment, quiet down all that noise, and just say, it's okay that there is a reality where I am the hunter. It's okay that there is a reality that I am the witch burning. It is okay that in one reality I victimize and in another I am victim. It is okay that I am the hero in somebody's story and the villain in someone's story. And it is okay that I am both the villain and the hero in my own. It is okay that some days I hate myself and some days I love myself more than words could describe. This is all that I am here to remember and to absorb. I am born for these times. I am born to remember and to hold this. I am born to hold this. My nervous system isn't supposed to calibrate to peace and calm and nothing and numbness. My nervous system is supposed to hold the complexity of the reality that I be, because I be it all. I exist in it all. And I am not going to let myself or any of my ancestors sit in these pits of doom, of hell, of agony, of demonic, terrible hell. But equally, I am there and I accept and I love the part of me that is choosing to be there right now until such a time that I can hold them long enough to recalibrate to truth. When you are a mother and your child makes certain behaviors that you know they don't want to do, but they are learning, they are testing boundaries, they are experiencing all the different aspects of them and their personality and playing that out. And then they meet a new friend and then they start to act like that friend for a while. And you as the mother, you just sit there and you say, it's okay, they're trying something on. Extend that same motherly connection and love for yourself, because the longer and more steadfast and deeper you can hold that motherly connection to yourself and all the little aspects of you that are running off and doing whatever they're doing, the more that you can calibrate back, expand outward, hold more complexity, hold more capacity. And then you start to realize, wow, every one of my choices creates an entire reality. Every one of my choices creates an entire reality. And each one of these realities is completely different. And I can go into each aspect of myself and say, you're really good at this. Let's cultivate that. You're really good at this. Let's definitely bring you center stage. And you go through and you go through and you go through each single one of you and understand it's not that one of you is bad and one of you is good. Because the part of you that is villainous and will say those cutting, damning things is needed by the meek, shy part of you that swallows your voice. You need to be balanced out in that. You've been playing out the extremities of you and the multidimensional aspect of yourself. But what have you fully metabolized and digested from all of it into finding that coherent, truthful center? Because while all of it is true of you, the lessons need to be integrated. The teachings, the learnings, the experiences all need to come to a culmination point of, this is why I did all those things. This is why I've been here for so long. And most importantly than anything else, this is why I'm here now. This is why, as the world order changes, for the first time in 5,000 years, I am here. This is what I am bringing. I only need to bring it all into me and accept to love myself in the fullness of every single aspect of these definitions, without judgment, without ego of like, oh, look at me, I can hold it all. I am both the villain and the victor, and wow, I'm just so much better than everyone else that's in their victim story or that's in their, disconnected self, because that's not integration. And you know that. But it's part of you integrating it. It's part of you seeing that aspect of you that can, and that is, but it's not the finishing point. Because the finishing point will likely feel very unexciting. Like, oh yeah, I've come back home. Like when you get home from a really, really, really long trip, you're excited to be there, but you're tired and you just want to go to bed. And you wake up in the morning and you go, gosh, it's nice to be in my own bed. But you don't throw a party. You don't really celebrate externally in any way other than this deep exhale of gratitude that you're back at home. And that's probably what it will feel like. And so those moments where you think that you're really, really great for doing this work, it's probably the sign that you haven't finished yet. It's probably the sign that there's still more humility to come, that there's more integration to come, that there's another aspect of you that's not doing the work to be integrated as well. So yes, these are my musings on what has occurred since I met my great-grandfather, who was someone I'm grateful to have, because if he did not do what he did, I would not be here talking to you. I would not be able to metabolize being the result of a rapist. I would not be here if I were not the descendant of a raper and a sexual assault victim. And I don't even know that that's the full truth, because of course it's not. And there's more to know and more to accept and more to discover. And I have got nothing to do with the rest of my life in many ways than to continue to absorb and integrate and home all the aspects of me and all the aspects of my biology. But the more that I am aided in seeing these perspectives, the more that I am able to understand why this is such an exciting time to be on Earth. Because it's easy to forget. It's very easy to forget. And it always feels like there's more to do and more to unravel, and that the string that we are pulling just never seems to stop being pulled. And I think I'm coming to a point of time where it's like, that's okay. That's okay. I hope that you got something out of these ramblings, for lack of a better word. If this resonated with you, or you think somebody else needs to hear it, please like and share this podcast. Please subscribe. Please rate us. It would really, 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 really help. This episode of Becoming Flame is brought to you by Phoenix. Phoenix is a ritual luxury house devoted to erotic feminine embodiment. We create alchemical intimacy oils and functional fragrances infused with spagyric botanicals designed to soften the nervous system, open the body, and awaken life force vitality. Our formulations are crafted as tools of self-initiation. They are not cosmetic. They are not decorative. They are designed to be felt. They are designed to shift. Each oil facilitates a cellular shift into relaxation and receptivity, activating and opening up an archetypal femininity that your body knows and is yearning to step into. These oils allow the body to open safely into sensual intelligence, magnetism, and creative power. They open the libido and open creative sexual energy. When the body is safe, it softens. When it softens, it receives. When it receives, it creates. And when it creates, the entire world shifts. We believe that women who sit deeply in their bodies, in their erotic intelligence and sovereignty, become powerful creators of their lives and the environments around them. Our products are initiations into that coherence. Luxury in experience, devotional in use, transformational in effect. Get yours now at phenx.com. That's PHENXX.com.